Okay, welcome everyone. We have with us Yuri from Brazil, and this is a meet and greet session for international intensive training in nonviolent communication, which is going to happen in Bangalore from 15th of January to 24th of January. Yuri is one of the trainers, and there are other trainers to this training. We have Anisha Pandya from Mumbai, Duke, Stephanie, and Yuri. This session is for you to get to know Yuri and the teaching style of Yuri and decide if you would like to join IIT in Bangalore. We're gonna have more sessions. We had one session with Stephanie last month. We're gonna have one more session with Duke and Anisha. Uh, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in that session and also in the IIT if the time and energy is aligned for you. Welcome, Yuri. I am so excited for today's topic. Today, we're gonna talk about how we can use nonviolent communication in organizations and communities. And this has been one of my favorite topics because as in the primary origin of NVC is through interpersonal, one-on-one communication techniques, and uh, at some point Marshall also come to this conclusion. So am I, and so I guess is Yuri that one-on-one interpersonal communication change is not enough to create a large-scale change. And then if we want to apply it to a bigger setting like family or organization or communities, how do we go about it? What else we need to do to incorporate the principles of NVC in organization? And I'm so happy for Yuri to be able to support us to go through this journey because I had seen Yuri applying this in a very intense conflict uh, spaces where there are real fights and real issues which are happening on the ground on a community levels and organizational level. So thank you, Yuri, for your time and welcome everyone. I'll let Yuri take the space and dive us into how we can use NVC for a broader system. Yuri.
Thank you so much, Kunal, for this lovely introduction, and good evening to everyone that is with us tonight. And also good morning to quite a lot of people that are joining from Brazil, which I'm happy to see here. So Brazil and from Uruguay. So we have different sides of the globe connecting here today. And I want to say that all of my work, all of this time of working with nonviolent communication has been a joint path with my life and work partner that's here today as well. It's Sandra. Um, so all the work that we do, almost all of the work that we facilitate together. And thank you for the introduction, Kunal, of the topic, which is a topic that is very close to my heart. Um, I agree with you with something that you just mentioned, that a lot of people come to nonviolent communication because they're looking to listen more deeply or to express more honestly or to navigate conflict. And there are also many experiences and feedbacks that I've received from people themselves, noticing that when they are facing a similar difficulty that keeps repeating, keeps appearing over and over again across a team or an organization or a community, that they find themselves experiencing a certain gap between this interpersonal and intrapersonal abilities and how to deal with this collective. So what we'll do in half an hour today, which is very, very short for such a huge topic, we're going to investigate and explore a little bit of what nonviolent communication can at least start supporting us. And my hope is that we get much more time to do that during the IIT in January in Bangalore, India. And so we're kind of dipping a tip of our toes in the water of a very, very deep and broad swimming pool today. And before we start, I'd love for us to have just a little bit more connection here. And so I wonder if there's anyone that has their camera shut that would be willing to open their cameras, which for me contributes a lot in being able to see your faces and us having more of an experience of being together in a even virtual, but still a virtual circle. And of course, if you are not prepared or ready to open your camera, that's perfectly fine too. You're so welcome to stay. It's just supportive for me if you're able to do that. I would love for us to just take a breath for just a second. And I invite you to do that in a way that you can do it very quickly, but also in a centered way. So if you could find for yourself a position that you can just center your body and relax it a little bit. And if you'd like, you can close your eyes. You don't have to, but I would invite you to just take a few breaths and just notice that you are transitioning from whatever you were doing before into another activity. And as you breathe, I invite you to just notice how you are landing here. Just acknowledge to yourself how much you are carrying with you. Maybe you are worried about things that happened throughout the day. Maybe you're still concerned about something that will happen after this session. And that's perfectly fine. I just want you to acknowledge to yourself what's present in you right now. And just perceive what happens when you breathe intentionally. What a sense of connection you get with yourself. How there's a shift in quality of presence. And I invite you to, in your own rhythm, find your way back, slowly returning to our virtual circle. And just notice if this little centering gave you the urge to stretch a little bit, if you would like to just move. Maybe you haven't done this. Maybe you haven't done any movement for your neck or your body. We stay in front of screens so much during the day. And so just another layer of connection and presence. Thank you. And welcome again, everyone. So the question I was raising before, it's an interesting thing about nonviolent communication because of its name, a lot of people only keep more alive in their minds the aspect of communication or the aspect that is interpersonal. And Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of this practice, as Kunal mentioned before, there's a moment he reached a point, a conclusion where there are several dimensions to this practice. They're all part of it. And if you remove any one of these dimensions, you will find it's incomplete. So the interpersonal and intrapersonal practices or dimensions are also complemented by the systemic dimension. And Marshall had a saying that if we learn how to, I'm quoting freely, it's more or less like this. If we learn how to deal with ourselves and with others in better ways, in ways that we can live happier lives. And we live these happier lives in the systems in the way that they are, and we don't also contribute to changing the systems that we live in a way, we become part of the problem. Our living happily in our systems becomes part of the problem. We are using nonviolent communication as a narcotic rather than as a practice of change. And just to illustrate what he meant when he spoke about systems, he would say that nonviolent communication was a practice that is aimed to create a world, to contribute to creating a world where all needs matter equally. It doesn't mean that we will meet all needs all the time. That's a different challenge, but that all needs matter equally. He was talking about our shared humanity being taken into consideration when we look at the systems that we live in. And he would also say that this practice is focused on transforming domination systems into cooperation and partnership systems. So he would refer very clearly to these elements. And so we come back to thinking about context of a community or a company, an organization, a team. And if we notice, for example, that let's say a phenomenon that one person is silent in a meeting, we might think it's an individual difficulty. We might think there might be something with that particular person, maybe their personality, maybe something that happened to them that has them be more silent all the time. But when many people are repeatedly stay silent, especially when they disagree, we may need to become curious about the meeting, about the leadership, the culture, the consequences of speaking, and how they land for different people in different ways. And the shift that I'm talking about is shifting from observing pinpointing one's kind of like a punctual phenomenon and noticing a pattern. And patterns usually represent something larger. So when we invite to look through all of the lenses of nonviolent communication, to invite to look at things through the systemic lens doesn't remove the individual responsibility, but it expands our attention to the conditions that are influencing people's choices. Is this making sense so far? Yes? Yeah, I see some nodding. Thank you. Some feedback for me is always good. So I'm going to be checking in with you and noticing if it's making sense. So I'd like to invite you to think of a system that you belong to or that you participate in. When I'm talking about systems, I'm usually talking about, it could be groups or collectives, but it goes beyond that. It goes into leadership and culture and structure and power. So there are more elements that are entailed in a system. And so I would like you to think about a system that you know well, a workplace, a group, a community, or a social movement. And I want you to think a little bit, what is a recurring outcome that keeps happening, even though nobody consciously intends it? What's a recurring outcome that's always happening? So maybe the same people repeatedly make most decisions. Maybe people actively avoid disagreement or difficult topics. It could be that conflicts consistently escalate into personal attacks, or certain voices receive more attention while others are on the margins. Or maybe members say yes publicly in meetings, but resist or disengage afterwards. I'm just giving you examples for you to think of something that is real for you in your experience. Another example could be people routinely experience exhaustion, burnout, and leave the system. So just notice if any of these examples help you evoke an example that you experience in your own system. And I want to give you 1 to 2 minutes of silence to identify an outcome that continuously happens. Reflect just silently, or you can silently, or you can write down your example of an unintended outcome. An outcome, just to reinforce what I'm saying, is a real recurring behavior or pattern that you identify. And I would like to invite you to share in the chat when you're ready. You can do it in a safe way. You can do it anonymously. You don't need to share the name of the organization or anything like that. But if you'd like to share a few words describing the pattern in the chat, for example, decision-making lag or exhaustion, if you'd like to just type into the chat, what is the pattern that you are identifying in the organization that you belong to, or organization, workplace, group, any kind of group, could be community, social movement, anything. So Laura shared, people in the group always are half an hour late for our monthly meeting of 2 hours, for example. Kunal shared, some people getting shamed for who they are because they do not fit in. Yeah. Angela shared, people avoid conflict and do things without sharing with the other, without communicating. Thank you. Monica, during meetings, we talk for much longer than we would like to. Very lengthy meetings. So, any of these, Charan shared, few voices get more attention. There is power dynamic into the discussion. Kaka shared, leadership are not prepared to give feedback and using power over to have things done. So all of these examples, you could notice that you could look at them through an interpersonal lens that would ask what is happening between the people involved. It would look at the specific interaction and the person and would maybe create a story about a particular action that that person is taking, or their personality, or their past, or something like that. But if you take a systemic lens, it will also ask what make this outcome likely to happen again with these people or with different people. So NVC helps us listen for human experience and needs. This is a basic NVC transformation. When we are looking through NVC lens, we are looking beyond the surface. We are looking to find the humanity of people. And applied systemically, it also asks whose needs repeatedly shape the system, whose remain at the margins, and what conditions affect participation. So I'd like to invite you to practice a little bit and go into dyads for a short breakout. I think we might need to make it a little shorter, Kunal, than we planned, but just maybe 8 minutes is enough. And so I would like the speaker to share, um, briefly describe, I'll put it in the chat, the recurring outcome, who is affected, needs served and not served by the current way of operating. And the listener will have this list of questions to choose from, to just make short, just choose two, maybe two questions, maybe three if there's time, if it makes sense during while you're listening to your partner. Just it's not a reflective listening, it's not an empathic listening. You're sitting in presence with your partner, hearing their story, and maybe one of these questions will help investigate a little more what we are trying to do when we look at a phenomenon like this and put a systemic lens on it. So I'd like to invite you to go into dyads. Kunal, is that easy to, yeah? Okay, we'll give you about 8 minutes and we'll invite you back. There's, if you can switch at halftime, we will let you know when 4 minutes has gone by. Okay. Hi, Kaka. Good to see
Kaka,
you.
are you from? Where are you from?
Most people think I'm from India, but I'm from Brazil.
You have
Tell me,
such a Hindi name, Mandakini.
Dakini. Yes, I received this name from my Tantra teacher. So it's a spiritual name.
Yeah. I haven't seen Indians using this
And
name.
I am brown, so Mandakini brown. So there are lots of invites from Indian people in my LinkedIn.
Makes sense.
That's so lovely. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you got a chance to share a little bit, and in your sharing to experience a little more what it means or what it brings to invite a systemic lens, to invite an attempt to understand the patterns. These questions are intended to direct us to certain curiosities that are not necessarily automatically activated. Questions that are coming from curiosity for me are very meaningful. They are truly an internal movement of attempting to understand. And although we won't have time to talk about here about approaches or processes that can be applied, the most important thing before you think of any process or approach or strategy is to actually understand what is going on, to have a better understanding what's going on. Because if your understanding is distorted, your intervention is going to be misguided. The strategy you're going to choose is not going to work, or is going to work only on a surface level, and it's not going to even scratch these other levels. So when we're asking what usually happens before this outcome happens, or before the behavior, what makes it understandable within this system, what people learn they must do to belong or remain safe, Who influences decisions and who carries their consequences? What perspectives or needs are difficult to express? And the rest of the questions. We are actually looking at a few focus areas of curiosity that I want to share with you here. So 4 areas of systemic curiosity, of trying to understand the phenomenon and not come back to normal focusing on individuals or the interaction. So you could have a focus on relationships and who are the people speaking and listening, conversational patterns, direct feedback versus triangulation, quality of presence. There's much more in that as well. Culture, what is encouraged, rewarded, or unsafe in that group. So the unwritten rules, the reactions to mistakes, safety of sharing, vulnerability, things like that, that compose the culture of that group, of that particular team or organization. Structures, who has access to info and decisions. Formal protocols, meeting formats, distribution of resources. So oftentimes, when we see, for example, somebody shared before, meetings go much longer, people speak way longer than what is needed. Rarely I've seen people stop in conventional organizations or groups to think, is it the way we hold our conversations? What are the protocols to hold our conversations that is making it unproductive, that is making our meetings unproductive? And then lastly, power. Who can say no without consequences, for example? It's a big question. Decision-making models, vulnerability to retaliation, and marginalized voices. So I want to just say these are different elements that are behind what would I need to train myself to activate this curiosity in me in order to look with this lens at what's going on and not just at the surface level. The surface level is the symptom. These elements that I'm talking about are what creates the conditions for that symptom to occur. So it's a big topic, and I am wanting to say that when we bring NVC to a practice like this, it might look a little different than how we practice in interpersonal or intrapersonal, just offering empathetic listening or expressing authentically, but it's trying to really look at these larger structures and see whose needs matter, whose needs are being met and whose needs are not. And what are the stories, the narratives that we all sustain together, that we all believe, that keep these things in their place. So for example, when we look at the different elements that we were talking about, we can think that leadership can shape what becomes possible. Leadership is able to invite specific protocols and processes to be put in place. Culture is revealed through repeated experiences, not only stated values, which in many companies and organizations that I've worked with, it's just this affirmation of values, but there is no connection to what is really lived in everyday life. Conflict can carry information about the system as well. Conflict is such a precious thing that if it's suppressed in the culture of the organization, we never really know what is attempting to get attention, what is attempting to say, hey, we need to shift something here. A conflict usually for me is a signal that is trying to tell us that. And then we can talk about decision making and social change as also looking as what are the conditions that need to be transformed. So the question I want to leave you with as we close already, because this is a really tiny short session, is what is one recurring outcome in a system you belong to that you would now like to approach with greater curiosity? I'm going to place it in the chat. This is for you. You don't need to respond it now. The idea is to take NVC from a relationship to systemic lens. Doesn't mean to leave empathy or individual responsibility behind. It means to expand our attention. That's what I want to leave you with. Alongside asking how people can communicate differently, we ask what our relationship, culture, structures, and decision-making repeatedly produce, and what we may want to create together instead, what we would like to shift and change. So I'd love to just hear maybe just put in the chat. We don't have time to really harvest. One thing that clicked for you from this very brief time together. One thing that was meaningful, if you can put it in the chat. And I will already hand it over to Kunal to maybe move us into Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yuri. And before we move into Q&A, I'm happy for all of you to ask questions from Yuri about any current issues which you are facing in your life. But before we do that, I want all of you to invite and learn this topic in a more longer duration of 9 days in Bangalore in a program where Yuri would be present. And I guess all of you must have pre-registered for this event through the website. So I'm gonna share my screen and just let you know what is this program about. This is International Intensive Training in Nonviolent Communication by Center for Nonviolent Communication with the theme of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is a Hindi word which means that all of us are one family. And if we, start seeing that, then we may have the first step, the intention to resolve the conflict with more, we can approach it with more curiosity, because now I don't see you as enemy. I see you as a family member who's in distress, or who's doing something which is putting me in a spot where I am distressed. So how do I move forward with the energy that, yeah, we are part of a big family and let's sit and solve this together. With this theme, we would be meeting together for 9 days with all these 4 amazing trainers, and you can find all the information here. There's a regional discount for people who would be joining from India and nearby countries, which is valid till 7th October, the early bird price, even for international. So feel free to take advantage of this time period. And just to give you more sense of what are we going to do in this training and who are these other trainers, we have prepared this video, a short video for 2 minutes. I'm going to play this video now, and I hope you can hear the voice properly with this video.
In a world increasingly shaped by division and disconnection, how do we remember that we belong to one human family?
This is Anisha Pandya from Mumbai, India. I'm a psychotherapist, educator, and OD consultant by profession. During this program, we're going to be sitting with the inquiry. How do we stay connected to other fellow human beings when there is so much tension, animosity, conflict, and divide in this world? If this question stirs something in you, please do join me.
Hello, my name is Duke Dukeshire. I'm from Canada and the US. For many years now, I've been working in peace building and reconciliation in communities affected by conflict and trauma. Together, we'll explore how listening and compassionate dialogue can help transform separation into understanding.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Pachman-Matei, and I love to grow and learn together about the practice of nonviolent communication and how it can contribute to flourishing, so in relationship with ourselves, with others, and to also contribute to a world where everybody's needs are really held with care.
Hello, I'm Yuri Haasz from Brazil. My work is rooted in a simple and challenging question. What becomes possible when we truly remember that we belong to one human family? Through nonviolent communication, self-empathy, and dialogue, I look forward to exploring this question together with you.
We are grateful to bring together people from different cultures and lived experiences in a shared space of dialogue, learning, and human connection.
We warmly invite you to this immersive journey into nonviolent communication and to live the spirit of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one family.
A 9-day international nonviolent communication retreat in India. A space to listen deeply, reconnect across differences, and rediscover our shared humanity.
Thank you very much. If you like the video, this video is created by my dear colleague and my co-organizer, Charan. Charan used to work in multimedia and films and art side of the thing. So I'm really grateful for his presence in the team. And now I would want to open this platform for any questions related to Yuri's session on NVC in the systems and also for the IIT. If you want to know anything, feel free to ask. And before you move forward, I do have a question with you, Yuri. And when you sent people on the breakout, I went on searching about this quote you expressed a while ago during the start of this session about narcotics, using NVC as a narcotics. And I had seen different versions of this quotes, and sometimes Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of NVC, says narcotics, and sometimes he says opium in some places. But I found these as a strong use of words, and I haven't seen Marshall using some of the really strong words to describe something, but he has used it here, and probably it was because he really wanted to emphasize how important it is to create the social and systemic change and not just keep doing the empathy part of it. And I just want to know more about you. How do you see this quote, and like what is so important in it for you to be alive?
Thank you, Kunal, for the question. And thank you for sharing the video here. Also, just to say, it's such a beautiful work that Charan made. The one thing that comes to mind is that when Marshall Rosenberg started reflecting and thinking about what later became nonviolent communication, when he narrated it, he would narrate how it came from his perception of systemic violence around him. He was exposed to the race riots in the United States. So the topic of racism and how it connects to colonialism and to slavery was, and how it was appearing in terms of systemic violence around him, was one of the earliest things that invited him to think, what is behind this? Why our world is like that? And then he also suffered persecution himself, being from a Jewish family. He tells stories of receiving treatment that would discriminate him on the basis of being Jewish. and calling him names, and so that was anti-Semitism. So he also experienced it in that way, and also that also instigated in him this trying to understand what is behind this, why people behave like this, why does this happen. So the seeds of nonviolent communication are actually planted in systemic grounds. It's from that he started developing this practice, this body of practice, and he connected even the interpersonal and intrapersonal practices. When we look at them, for me, they are deeply connected to the systemic in the sense of the large patterns of thought, of separation, of either or, how they are embedded in our socialization, in our culture, and how they don't allow us to really see each other and connect to each other on an interpersonal level, and don't really allow us to have systems that care for needs in a way where all needs matter equally. So for me, there's a resonance actually from the beginning, the very beginning of NVC. And I do believe that there was a lot of success that happened for nonviolent communication, but it initially happened in very privileged parts of the world, in parts that have a lot of access to resources in North America, in Europe. And so that other part, the systemic part, was left kind of not so much as an integral part of the practice, because the tendency for me as a more, let's say, a more privileged person is to not notice the realities of others. And so I don't really get or understand why that is important. It's harder challenge for me to open my heart to that, to look into myself and see how I am reproducing those systems. So there's kind of a recovery that continuously happens about why this is so important and how easily we fall into the narcotic practice of it. Because I do believe that this sentence that you are mentioning, Kunal, that you're bringing here in the chat, comes from a frustration where he would see a lot of interpersonal and intrapersonal practices being done, but not enough those elements that were so dear to him since the beginning. So this is what I'm hearing. He's like wanting, please look at this. This is so important if we want to create a different world.
Yeah,
Thank
he's trying to shake people up with strong words to be, like do get this. This is the crux. This is the most important thing.
Yeah.
This is the fruit of the tree, which is nonviolent communication. To create systems which would lead to meet more needs, not just individuals.
Yes, I am sharing with you this same interpretation of this that he might have been doing just that. Thank you for the question, Kunal.
Thank you, Yuri.
Yeah.
I see there are some chats, and I would also open the floor for everyone to to come forward, ask questions, and
Okay.
and if you feel complete, you are welcome to sign out.
So yeah, just to say here in the chat, I see Laura posted, I found myself thinking about the power dynamics within this group. I'm imagining, Laura, it's the group you were thinking about, you were working about, yeah, with. They turn up late, but who could turn up early without facing the consequences? I see you were raising a question that maybe you weren't thinking before, about, oh, how this experience is different for people around the power issue. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. And I see Ritu also. I recently facilitated village-led research on well-being and mental health. The dream of the village is
Anandamayi Gaon, which means blissful village.
blissful village. Thank you so much, Ritu, for sharing this. Immediately while reading your words here, the first thing that comes to mind is the concepts of Martin Luther King's Martin Luther King nonviolence philosophy, which the goal of is beloved community. And I'm wondering now, I'm just because of the name, Blissful Village, maybe there are parallels that could be interesting with beloved community. Did you want to speak? Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm Ritu. I'm calling from Delhi. Yeah, what I work with communities, and why I shared is like I'm just turning things around. We are always like looking at things from problem, weaknesses. Um, I think if we turn around, what if care and love was our what is it modus of operandi, a way of living and working? Um, because this village was faced six deaths by suicide because there was constantly conflict in this village. And after the research, they've realized that if they care for each other, then these suicides can be averted. And 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 the solution is not from the outside, because village is also a system, and many of the solution is rooted within the village and the family. Many of the issues were disconnection between family members, disconnection with self. So I'm thinking that I see non-violence also in more like in love and connection and not separation. So when we start from like what's the problem, it separates us. But if we come together as human beings, I don't know, that's what I've learned in my work. And now this village is very proud. It's far more harmonious. I think local initiatives could be an answer as well.
Thank you so much, Ritu, for sharing this. I'm so glad you opened your mic and shared. I'm hearing this this invitation of it looks like almost a simple thing. What if our premises or our goals or what if we were departing from the idea that love and humanity and acceptance were what we wanted to hold dear? And it's just beautiful to hear, so painful also to see what generated this research, the pain in the community, in the village, but at the same time also, yeah, the question of what is it that we're not noticing that is right now guiding us and producing this violence repeatedly? And if we see those patterns, can we choose to change them? Maybe those are not the patterns that we would like to have. Maybe we would like to have a pattern that is more about really hearing each other, seeing each other as humans, mourning what is difficult, like really having space for having the difficult conversations. Yeah, thank you so much for bringing this example. And I see Monica, your hand is up.
Thank you so much, Yuri, for the lovely session. I had a question for Kunal. When is the next session planned, or specifically with Duke?
Charan, do you know the dates?
It's on September 5th, Duke session.
September 5th.
What time for Indian
It's
Standard Time?
at the same time, 7 to 8 p.m.
All right.
I'll send you more details about it.
Great, thank you. I won't be able to attend, but I'd love to see the recording.
All right.
I wanted to briefly just share before handing back to Kunal that the invitation to come to an IIT, there are several people here on this call that have been to IITs, I just want to say. And I want to just, if you can just give a reaction, if this is true for you, if what I'm going to share. That the IIT is literally diving into a transformation process. Is the experience. There are a lot of sessions, and of course we have more time. Today was very short, so we would dive like a 2-hour session into a topic like this with many practices. It's very hands-on. It's very much about practice. And also, there's a bigger experience, which is living nonviolent communication in community for 9 days. And I want to say my own experience of having been to many, many IITs is every time I come out different. Things shift in me. There's a learning, an embodied learning that is of a different quality. And I just wanted to share it with you as you consider maybe coming, and I would love to see you there. But I'm wondering also of the people that have been to IITs, if that's their experience too. Can you just raise your hand if that was like a deep transformational experience too? Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Kunal, I'm handing it over to you.
Thank you very much. It was lovely meeting all of you. I hope to see some of you in Bangalore. Thank you very much for joining. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for your questions and typing into the chat and participation. Thank you. And thank you for everyone that came.